You are probably keenly aware that communication is key to a healthy relationship, and couples make a ton of mistakes when it comes to the way they communicate in their marriages. But now, having been married 30 years and having worked with couples for more than a decade, I believe that there is one key mistake that lots of couples make that I want to address in this video and give you 3 thoughts on how you can avoid this mistake. That's today on RelationShots. Hey, welcome to RelationShots. If you have not yet downloaded your free guide to intimacy, you'll see a link in the description area below. If communication is something you're struggling with in your relationship, you'll see a link below to a free live masterclass I'm currently doing on communication, where I will add value in 1 hour to your relationship in the area of communication. So let's talk about it. What I believe to be the number one mistake that couples make when it comes to communication in their relationships, I believe that mistake is trying to have the right conversation at the wrong time. And there are a lot of people who believe that anytime and anywhere is a great time to have whatever kind of conversation they feel like having in the relationship, especially those people who do not shy away from conflict, who love to address things and address them and just get them over with. Those people believe that it is always a great time to have that difficult conversation. And I'm here to tell you, if that's you, you are wrong. So here's what I believe. I believe there are 3 main types of conversations that we have in our relationship, and it's important when we have what types of conversations. So I believe we have conversations that are logistical in nature. That's one category. You know, things like parenting, things like running the house, things like paying the bills, things like getting ready for vacations, taking the kids to appointments, all those things that involve the logistical day-to-day of running a family and a marriage. We have logistical conversations. Another category are problem-solving / conflict-resolving conversations. These are the difficult conversations we have to have in our relationship, where we maybe have to address issues we have with one another. We may correct some things. We may need to ask for some things in a relationship. Those are usually the ones that tend to escalate and cause tension and disconnection in a relationship. And then a third category are connecting conversations. And guess what? That's what we did in the dating process predominantly. Right? Because we weren't managing household together, so we didn't have to have a whole lot of logistical. We aren't combining money. We aren't parenting. We aren't doing a lot of difficult things in relationships. So when dating, you probably didn't have a whole lot of conflict resolving, problem resolving conversations. But when you get in marriage, you have all those. So most of what's happening in the dating process are connecting conversations. And that's the part of the relationship we like. Our problem is, if we are not intentional about when we have what kinds of conversations, the problem is what will happen in our relationship is the logistical conversations, the conflict-resolving conversations will take over the whole relationship, and we'll find out that we are not connecting anymore. Another thing that happens to us is we tend to mix these conversations. And so we may be out on a date night and we end up getting into a conversation about an area of our relationships that is tense, and we ruin our moment of connection because we decided this was a good time to bring up a difficult topic. So in order for you to communicate better in your relationship and avoid having the right conversation at the right time, let me give you 3 thoughts. Thought number 1 is don't mix conversations. Like I said, you may be on a date night, and if you're on a date night, the goal of that time together, those conversations, is connection. You're trying to build a relationship. You're trying to stay emotionally connected. And so if you know there are areas of your relationship that if you bring them up, they usually cause tension and conflict, you don't talk about them. For my wife and I, for the majority of our married life while we were parenting, we had difficulty getting on the same page. We have different parenting perspectives. Let me say it that way. We've talked about it many, many times. At the end of the day, we differ in some areas. So usually when we talk about parenting, discipline, rules, consequences, how to parent, usually it ends up with a tense conversation or conflict. So if I'm on a date night with my wife, guess what I'm never going to do? Talk about my kids. Yeah, you don't talk about the kids on date night, because for us, that was a point of contention. I would also say, even if it's not a point of contention, when you start talking about them, we are getting into logistics. So if you are having a date night, the point of that is a connecting conversation. Do not bring up logistics. and do not bring up problems to solve or conflicts to resolve. Just the same, we don't want to try to mix a conversation that's maybe logistical with problem solving, because then we end up getting in a fight. So at the end of the day, when you know we have these 3 categories of conversations, you need to be specific about when you have one of those. So my next thought is you need to create a rhythm or cadence for how you communicate about what throughout the week. Now, if you've seen any of my other videos, you know I've talked about couples having a relationship rhythm, and I suggest a staff meeting once a week, a date night once a week, and a couple quick connections each week. And so the goal of that is to be intentional about when we are having what types of conversations. And you need a rhythm to your week that determines when we're going to do what, right? If you like to get up in the morning together and have coffee and talk, those are going to need to be connection conversations. If you like to know what's coming up this next week and being on the same page, maybe on Sunday you need to have a staff meeting to have logistical conversations. I also think because we need to do the work in our marriages, you probably need a regular conversation once a week where you are bringing up issues in the marriage. This is a time we both know, hey, I'm going to ask for feedback on how I've been doing in areas I'm trying to grow in the relationship, and I'm going to give you feedback on areas that we've talked about that you're trying to grow. And so by separating those, we are ensuring that they will go much better than if we just decide to spring them on our spouse at a random time, right? If I've got a conflict or an issue I want to address, do you think it's going to be more successful if while my spouse is sitting watching TV, I come up and ambush them with, hey, I want to talk about this issue, as opposed to saying, hey, on Sunday after church or Sunday evening before, we get ready for our next work week, I would like to talk to you about fill in the blank issue. They have time to prepare. They're getting ready for it. They're ready to show up and have the conversation. So you need to develop a cadence for your week about when we are going to have which type of conversation of these 3, of the logistical, of the connecting, of the conflict. When are we going to have which type of conversation on a regular basis so that we ensure that they're happening? Now, it doesn't mean you can't have those conversations outside of those times. I'm just saying you need some designated time where we know we're going to be connecting. We know we're going to be talking about logistics. We know we're going to be talking about potential tension areas. At the very least, I need to know there are some times each week when I'm having each of those. And if you add other ones in the run of relationship and the run of day, that's fine. But I at least need to know I've got some designated time so that my relationship isn't going to turn into a purely logistical, conflict resolving, now we feel like roommates because we're never connecting. And my thought number 3 is make sure you're having more connecting conversations than any other kind. Every relationship in time has a tendency to drift towards the connecting conversations taking a backseat, the logistical conversations taking over, and the conflict resolving, problem solving conversations coming in and causing disconnection and tension in the relationship. So I would like personally to have way more connecting conversations than I do logistical or problem solving. And that's not going to happen unless I'm intentional about making sure those are happening multiple times throughout the week. So again, the number 1 mistake most couples make in relationship is having the right conversation at the wrong time. And the way you can get around that is quit mixing different types of conversations together, develop a rhythm to ensure all these kinds of conversations are happening, and make sure you're having way more connecting conversations than you are the other 2 so that you're actually enjoying the relationship. I'd love to hear your thoughts below. If you have any kind of rhythm or cadence that works for you, drop a note so we can learn from one another. And I'll see you right back here next time on RelationShots.